One of the most interesting things about kids and technology now is that screen time has dramatically shifted into overdrive over the past year, such that there are some parents who have a 7 to 15-year-old kid who may spend 6 hours a day on Zoom. So then, of course, there's the drift between the classes, and you just drift on to just scrolling along. How long do kids actually spend on screen time? And what are parents supposed to do about it? Because there are some issues related to that, and we've researched it for years, which is why even the Psychiatric Association has recommended, maximum screen times for developing minds for years before the pandemic. So to put that into context, right? So now that we've had this hyper blast of screen time for children, how do we redirect children to what goes on in real life? Because we've also seen the attachment that students, young people may have to their gadgets. Just like Linus and his blanket, they are like literally holding on to their phones for dear life. And I've actually seen people like flinch because something startled them and they turn to their phone like it's gonna save them. You ask someone any question on the earth, and the first thing they'll do is instinctively turn to their phones. And I get that. And so that's the kind of attachment that gives us the opportunity is, people who work with young people and adults around young people to teach them more positive and responsible ways to be in the world and to be in real life. Because we all hope that that guy from Snoopy, from Charlie and Charlie Brown, the guy with the blanket, we all hope that he eventually grew up and was able to attach those feelings not just to the security blanket or the security phone, but to have enough self-esteem and self-worth and self-value to not need that thing. And that's ultimately when we see people clinging to their phones, we know that they don't have that. And that's what we adults around children need to be in the business of affirming and reiterating and rehearsing and demonstrating. And again, it's often difficult to do when parents have been locked in for months and months and months doing their own work with their kids, facilitating their kids' own work and the housework. But parents, just remember that time-old tool of redirecting energy still works. So, just like when you want to get a toddler away from perhaps ripping something down and destroying something because they're crawling around and trying to find the way to walk around, just as we know that it's better to hand them something else that they can hold on to as opposed to saying, stop, no, don't do that, more effective. And the kids still get the effect of exploring their world. To hand them something else that's more interesting that they won't break, as opposed to yanking them away from something that they will break. Redirecting that energy has to continue when we follow our kids online. So there was an example from one of my favorite podcasts, On Point, where they're talking about this issue, and the woman was a researcher, also gave the example of seeing her grandkid watching an hour of Doritos commercials and being just shocked that that her grandkid couldn't even explain why they were just standing there watching an hour of Dorito commercials. And the other writer chimed in, and this is where I want to hone in on this skill of redirecting energy, because we have to do it. We have to teach people how to redirect their own energy and faculties. So instead of saying, or even chiding the kid for watching an hour of Dorito commercials, zoned out, lost, probably just standing somewhere, even gobbing on something, as we say, well, what did you like about it? How did you get to these videos? What were you watching before? So provide people an opportunity to think through their own behavior and just ask without judgment, just Socratic questioning. Not only do you get to know what and why they were doing what they were doing, but you also get to know what interested in them about it. And this is what I think that as an empath, I often forget that isn't so organic to a lot of people, to want to get to know people's interest in doing the things that they do, or looking at the things that they look at, and consuming the types of things that they consume. I think as an empath, we often, that to us is part of the knowing, rather than just seeing what and why, but to knowing what people's motivations are. And so That kind of Socratic questioning, I think, is what we as adults in the environment of young people saturated with technology have to get much better at. It's just helping younger people explain why they do what they do. What does it do for you that you scroll for hours and hours looking at videos on Instacrack, Snapcrack, Facecrack? What does it do for you? And really to develop the ability to ask those questions with young people as a discussion and not as a judgment and not as a you're going to judge me, but to really let them know that you're seeking understanding and even mutuality. We may even say, well, hey, actually, I find myself wasting time on the phones like this. And where did these things come from? So we're looking for relatedness, for interconnectedness through understanding. And through these ways, we can then say, well, are there other ways that you can redirect your energy? Like there are things you can do in real life that can give you that same joy and that same feeling. But we wouldn't otherwise know it if we didn't take the time to ask and, crucially, listen deeply.